and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and as always, we are exclusive to the PAK Radio Network. As always, as well, we are joined in the studio by Kerry Greenaway and Richard Clements. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Yes, I'm okay, yes.
Brilliant. What have you been up to in the last week?
I've been up to, still doing my keep fit routine, sort of trying to shift the pounds, but they don't seem to be going anywhere. So, but I will persevere and I will prevail. Positive thinking, that's what it takes.
Absolutely.
And less Jaffa cakes. I must admit, I did have a packet of Jaffa cakes today. I suppose that didn't help.
They're so easy to eat, though, aren't they, Jaffa cakes?
Yeah. Mm.
You can't just have one or two, you have to have the packet.
Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah, and you've got to do that, like, old British advert, where you go to half moon, full moon, total eclipse.
That's the one.
As you
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what you've got to do. It's the law. It's written in the law.
It's written in the law of Jaffa cake eating.
It is. It might even be written down in Hansel and Gretel.
It might be.
You never know.
No. Well, you might after this show tonight.
You might.
Then you might not, to be fair.
So I had some great feedback from last week's show.
Oh, did we?
We did. Don't sound so surprised, my boys.
No. I'm not surprised. Yeah. It's a brilliant show, and if you haven't caught it yet, where have you been?
Yeah, right. Where have you been, guys? No, we had some great feedback. I actually had somebody contact me. They'd been given a reading, astrological reading. Very nice.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, I was like, she was really blown away by this reading. £180.
Oh dear.
All right. That wasn't the best of it. When she got to the end of the reading, because she had some karmic debt, the lady then wanted to charge her, hold on to your hats, boys, because you ain't going to believe this one, £1,200 to do the karmic cleansing.
Of course.
I'm in the wrong business.
That's exactly what I said.
That's
exactly what I said.
I'm gonna learn the Barnum statement. And I'm just going to do that and then go.
I don't know. I'll just buy some sage and go and wave it in her general direction. And so there you go.
Do some clearings, karmic clearings, and charge $1,000 for it. Mm-hmm. I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I know, right? A little bit of a rip-off, I felt.
Yeah. But she enjoyed our show.
After listening to our show, she started to realise that a lot of it comes from you, and it's about your own power and accepting and connecting with your own, internal power for spiritual working, and that you can be ripped off out there, guys. So be very careful where you put your money. Put it that way.
Oh, definitely.
So it's £180 just for the astrological reading, and a further £1,200 to do the karmic cleansing. Nice day's work if you can get it right.
Absolutely. So after the show, did you send her an invoice for £700 for the advice?
For the advice. Well, I was like, oh my God, really? Yeah, true story.
Oh, wow.
I really wish I was making a joke there, but I am not. So guys out there, be very discerning where you put your money.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, especially where money is involved, yes. I mean...
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad we saved someone from that.
Most definitely, right?
As we say, we don't have a problem with people making a living or sort of charging for it, but there is
making a living and ripping people off.
Yeah, there is, isn't there?
There's a fine line, and I think whoever did that definitely
fine line. That was drawn by 5 massive giant markers. Fine line.
Couldn't believe it when I was hearing it, quite frankly.
No, that's
taking your breaths away, isn't it?
It has.
Well, it has really, yeah. So...
Wow.
Anyway, what are we going on about tonight? I think things are going to get a bit grim now, aren't they?
It might. Might get a little bit grim. We're going down the road of the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. Now, we know them, we've seen them, we've watched the sanitised Disney versions of them, but one night we were talking on Skype, as us lads and ladies do, and we sort of thought, the Brothers Grimm's all about? Grimms even. Grimms? They're Crims. They're not Grimms, they're Crims. What are they all about? Where do they come from? I mean, I don't know a lot about them. Do you guys?
Not really, no.
Well, that's it. End of the show. We don't know nothing about them. We're going.
What? they were librarians, weren't they?
They were.
Yeah?
Yeah, Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm. Now, they are so influential, not just in our folklore knowledge, but when we explored this particular aspect, I think the one thing that struck me was, I think if I was one of them, I would be incredibly annoyed that the one thing that I was actually famous for is not actually the height of my attributes, should we say.
Yeah, I get what you're coming from there, Kerry. Yeah,
they produced. I mean, we can't take away the impact of Grimm's fairy tales, because that is just one of the most influential works on folklore.
Yeah,
that we refer to now. But the stories seem so fantastical, don't they? What was the point of these stories? I mean, there's not the ones we know. There's hundreds of them, and they documented and wrote them down and compiled them into a book. And actually, there was between 1812 and 1857, there were 7 different editions of the fairy tales, each one different from the last. And then obviously the final version is the one we all know.
Oh, right? Okay, that's the definitive version, is it?
But it's so different from the first edition, it's barely recognisable as that.
Right.
So it's changed and evolved.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first edition has actually been honoured in celebrations throughout the world. It's like a good time, I think, to re-examine the Brothers Grimm and the stories that they told. Not just the stories, but the people behind those stories. Because I think one thing I've learned is no matter how much we strive for knowledge and recognition of what we know and what we put out there, usually it's the one thing that you would never expect will be the thing that sticks with people.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's very, very prevalent. It's very, very prevalent. Now, the Grimms never actually intended the tales that they wrote down, the folklore tales they wrote down, to actually be read by children, right? The stories themselves are about children and families and how they reacted to the conditions of the time in which they lived. So, and these are coming from folklore. It's oral tradition. This is, and they wanted to preserve these before they got lost. Lost in the annals of history. So they managed to create a collection of stories of folklore that is just so unique that it's still so referred to, shall we say, even to today.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And it's not just inspired, obviously the stories have inspired like Disney cartoons and stuff like that, but it's also like TV shows. We had that TV show called Grimm.
Yeah.
There's one of Brothers Grimm's ancestors, and they could actually see. They had a special gift of seeing, so they could see all these wonderful creatures hidden under the human skin, as it were. And obviously each one was different. I think the first one was a story of Red Riding Hood, but it was actually twisted to look true, if that makes sense, in this show.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good series. I enjoyed that. So if anyone gets the chance to see it, go and see the Grimm.
Then you've got Once Upon a Time. That's out on Netflix.
Yeah, I've not actually seen that yet.
Oh, it's brilliant. Love that.
I can remember a film a while ago now, The Company of Wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever see that? That was sort of based on the Red Riding Hood story, wasn't it? But it was very, I think it was in class as a horror movie. So it just shows the work these two actually sort of put out and done. Sort of just how sort of adaptable it is, and
Yeah.
how multi-layered the stories are.
And I think no matter what version you get to see, it also still carries the same moralistic message that was in the original.
So although they
And I think that's really,
changed and sanitized and things like that over the 7 editions, the moral is, like you say, the morals of the story stay the same, don't they?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is a little surprising fact for you. The books themselves, the Grimm's fairy tales, would become second in popularity only to the Bible in German-speaking lands.
Mhm.
All right.
They are the most famous collection of folk and fairy tales in the Western world.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Crazy, isn't it?
absolutely. I mean, like the story of Red Riding Hood, the moral of the story is there: don't go and see your nan. Sort of.
Not quite sure that's the moral of the story there, Paul. Anyway, let's
Yeah,
have a
it is.
look
It's
at.
all about nans, isn't it? Right? You got like Red Riding Hood. Don't go to see your nan because they're a wolf in disguise. Then you've got the old lady that lives in the gingerbread house, yeah, Hansel and Gretel. Don't go and see your nan. Keep her well away from them. Oh, gee.
Anyway, do go and see your nan. They get lonely, right? Okay, guys. Anyway, let's have a little look at Jacob and Wilhelm. A little bit more about them. Now, Jacob was born in 1785. Wilhelm was born in 1786. Now, they were quite precocious students at the University of Marburg, but they grew up quite fast because they were plagued by money problems and caring for their siblings. Their father actually died in 1796. So when they were, when their father was alive, they were quite middle class family. But obviously, with his death, that plunged them into poverty.
Right.
Okay, now around this time, you've got the Napoleonic Wars.
Yes.
Okay, so you've got all that going on under the political spectrum as well, which makes hard times all round, right?
And that's
Hmm.
it. And then ABBA was singing about Waterloo.
Oh, my lordy lord. That kind of mood today, are we?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Now, Jacob stopped his studying at this point to serve the Hessian War Commission, and although Wilhelm had passed his law exams, found work as a low-paid librarian in the Royal Library. Not actually a bad position, right?
No, you'd think
No.
so, wouldn't you?
I think all three of us would love to work in a library, wouldn't
Yeah, I can't say I wouldn't mind that.
we? See, I wouldn't mind the New York library, the one in Ghostbusters.
Oh, because of the ghost that haunts there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Richard, we need to up his medicine.
Yes, I think, yeah.
In 1807, Jacob actually lost the position with the War Commission, when the French occupied Cassel. But he was then hired as a librarian for the new King Jerome, Napoleon's brother, who now ruled Westphalia. This sounds like something out of Game of Thrones, doesn't it? This.
It does.
Now, amongst all of this, their mother actually died in 1808, and then Jacob and Wilhelm then became responsible for the three younger brothers and sisters. Now, there was a lot of personal problems. Oh, finances were tight, obviously. So between the 1805 and 1812, the brothers proved themselves to be innovative scholars in the new field of German philology.
Yeah, not come across that word before. Theology.
I think it's sort of on the lines of philosophy.
Yeah, it must be along those lines. Yeah,
Yeah.
considering they're working
We'll
in
go with
libraries.
that.
Yeah.
Kerry can't say that
I
word.
can't say, but I think
Yeah.
from reading between the lines, it's something to do with. Oh, anyway, I don't really know what it is, but it's philology. And they wrote basically articles and books on medieval literature, so they had great source information in where they were working. Okay. Um, now, they have done a huge amount of work on this, and this is why I say that Grimm's Fairy Tales is like the least of what they've put out there.
Yeah, it sounds like they had quite a bit of canon of work before they actually started on the fairy tale. Well, sort of their collecting of folk traditions.
Yeah, when you look at it, they had, an incredibly fantastic work, pioneering almost on German sound shifts and the founding of the voluminous, oh God, voluminous, large,
Voluminous.
should we say large, German dictionary in 1854. But that was the training that they got from this philology and medieval transcripts and stuff like that, that actually did them really well in when they were collecting and editing the tales. So it was sort of like a really, I mean, God, you want to put the foundation stones down of your work, then that certainly was a strong foundation.
Yeah, it sounds like that's where they really got their education from.
Now, in 1808, their friend, poet Clemens Brentano, asked them to collect all types of folk tales so he could use them in a book of literary folk tales, right? Fairy tales.
Yeah.
So in 1810, they actually sent him 54 texts. Now, thank God they copied them because Brentano lost the manuscript in the Ollenburg Monastery in Alsace and never used them.
Oh, right.
So when the boys realised that Brentano was not going to use the tales, they thought, along with some advice from another friend, Achim von Arnim, gosh, the names, they published the collection.
Yeah, so they obviously thought, well, you're not going to do anything with it, and it's our work, and we'll have that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so in 1812, they then published, it included 86 tales. And then they did another book with another 70 tales that they published in 1815, 3 years later.
Wow. That's a
It
lot
just,
of work.
yeah, it just
Yeah,
goes to show, doesn't it?
prolific. Yeah, prolific. Real scholarly stuff they're dealing with here. But they
Mm.
both work in libraries.
Hmm.
So it's hardly surprising, right?
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
Okay. Now, so what they wanted to compile tales and literature, that had the most natural and pure forms of culture, those tales that held the community together, based in history. And according to them, modern literature, even though it might be remarkably rich, was actually artificial and thus could not express the genuine essence of Volk culture, German culture basically, that it
Yeah.
emanated naturally from experience that bound people together. So it was,
Yeah,
sorry.
I can I can actually see. I know where they're coming from that sort of like the literature of the time were like the great novels and stuff like that, which are all well and good, and they are studied, but they don't have the sort of the underlying sort of as you said, essence of where they actually come from. They're very two dimensional.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah.
So they put all their efforts basically to finding these tales and recording them. And as I say, these are oral traditions, so they're going out, they're talking to people, they're delving, they're not just, you know, stuck in a library, they're talking to people, they're writing down these tales that they're finding. And it's
Hmm.
just a fascinating collection of stories that they've come across. Now, in the preface, the Grimms explained that they're interested in the culture of the common people and their intentions. So I'm going to read this. It was perhaps the right time to record these tales since those people who should be preserving them are becoming more and more scarce. Wherever the tales still exist, they continue to live in such a way that nobody ponders whether they are good or bad, poetic or crude. People know them and love them because they have simply absorbed them in a habitual way, and they take pleasure in them without having any reason. This is exactly why the custom of storytelling is so marvellous. And actually, in that statement alone, there's a passion there, isn't there? It's
Oh, yeah.
just, and I think it's a very humble statement, effectively.
Mm.
Absolutely. It's just a way of documenting folklores and tales throughout the ages that have been passed down from mother to daughter, mother to son, or father to son, etc.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
And I just think it just shows their whole nature just in that
Mm.
statement. It was what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, it they're almost like it's almost like an excavation of folklore.
Yeah.
When they go out and about and talking to people, they're digging for these stories and talking to people, and you know, and it's not actually a book for children. It's actually a book for adults and scholars, and they're not classed as children's stories,
No.
No,
even though
absolutely.
we know them as children's stories, don't we?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, they've
The
been
originals were
sanitised
like
now.
really gruesome and stuff, weren't they? So,
Mm,
yeah.
exactly. So they, and at this time, folklore and people that examine folklore hadn't really evolved into anything. It hadn't formalized into that form of study. And this book and what they did was basically formalize it into a an actual, what's the word I'm searching for?
An actual discipline.
There you
Yeah,
go. Knew
because
Richard would come up with
today,
it.
yeah, because today you can actually study folklore in universities and stuff.
Mhm.
It is an academic pursuit.
Mhm.
Whereas the Grimms, these were the first sort of people to actually sort of do what they did, to actually go out and correlate the stories and put them together, and they've left a legacy behind them of other people in other countries going around actually sort of like and collecting their own countries and regional folk tales as well,
Mhm.
and it all does actually come back off the back of the Grimm brothers.
Mm.
Mm.
It certainly does. And they've gone out into the, into the environment, into the individual cultures, and they've gone and they've looked and they've found and they've traced it, and they've seen how it's evolved through, and they've changed how the language has changed it, and how the needs and customs of people have changed those stories and created those,
Mm.
those bonds that we all know. You know what I mean? This is
Mm.
one of the reasons why they call their collection of tales an educational manual. I'm not ever going to attempt to say the German word for that,
Right.
unless one of you guys wants to attempt it.
No, no, you're right.
Oh, okay then. We'll just call it an educational manual. Because this is like the basic values of the Germanic people through storytelling. This is what it is. This is the essence of the Grimm's fairy tales.
Yeah.
And it's German. It all comes from Germany, or the
Yeah.
Germanic culture.
Germanic, sort of, that's part of Northern Europe. Yeah, the
Mhm.
Germanic regions. Yeah, you can imagine, like, the Grimms must have had, they must have travelled widely to actually do this. It must have been quite, quite good actually travelling around your countryside and just sort of pulling up on your horse and going into, I should imagine, taverns and people's homes and just talking to people
Mhm.
and
Yeah, that's exactly how it is.
transcribing what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Now, they wouldn't actually realise at this time when they were first collating these tales that although that's their focus, is the German folklore, German cultural evolution of stories and stuff like that, they didn't realise actually how it related to tales from many other nations. And that's actually why it's got such the appeal it has today. Because although
Hmm.
it's German and that was their focus when they were writing it and collecting these stories, it it translated across so many different cultures.
Yeah.
There were similar tales all the way through different
Well,
cultures.
you look at different cultures, yeah, and moralistic tales and tales of greed and sort of stuff like that. I mean, yeah, and they all have similar, don't they,
Hmm.
across the world. So yeah, you can see how it all sort of meshes together.
Hmm. What you also have to understand is that the ones we know that we know and love today are actually very different from what is actually in the first edition.
Hmm.
Okay, so you've got to look at if you were to read the first edition of Grimm's fairy tales. So there are some that are very, which we say, not very nice.
I can't wait for the Disney version of the Children of the Famine or something. Is it called? Oh no, the Hand with the Knife.
Oh, that's one. There's How Some Children Played at Slaughtering.
Yeah.
The Children of Famine. These are about brutal living conditions.
Oh yeah.
Right, the Children of Famine actually begins once upon a time. I'm going to tell you a little story now, guys. Ready?
Yeah, okay.
Put your pipe and slippers on.
Mm-hmm. All settle down.
Settle down by the fireplace. It's gonna be good.
Pull your blanket up, tucking you in for your nighttime bedtime story.
Yep.
Once upon a time, there was a woman with 2 daughters, and they had become so poor that they no longer had even a piece of bread to put in their mouths. Their hunger became so great that their mother became unhinged and desperate. Indeed, she said to her children, "I've got to kill you so that I can get something to eat."
Well, there you go. And they lived happily ever after.
As you do, that's what you tell your kids, Traumatised for life, no doubt. The Godfather, right?
Yeah.
Another little tale for you. A poor man in need of a godfather unknowingly chooses the devil, as you do, who may eat him after a visit to the devil's house of horrors. Lovely! Now, these were taken out in later editions, I would like to add, but they were in the first edition. Now, some tales, you'll recognise this one, Puss in Boots.
Yep.
Yeah? There's another one, Bluebeard. Not quite so sure about that one.
I've heard of Bluebeard.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Disney movie.
What, Bluebeard?
Yeah.
Yes,
Bluebeard.
it is an old Disney, so whether they based it on that.
He was a pirate.
Yeah.
Rawr, rawr.
Arr.
There's my farmer coming back out again.
Yeah.
They were actually taken out because they were considered too French to be included in the German collection.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, Death and the Goose Boy was omitted because it had Baroque literary features.
Right. Well, you don't want Baroque in your fairy tales, yeah.
God, no. The Strange Feast, it was very close in nature to the Godfather Death.
Right.
That was took out because it was too close to it. Right, The Stepmother, because it had fragmentary nature and cruelty. Cruelty after the first one? Jeepers. I mean, God knows what that one was.
But essence of the wicked stepmother do come through in later editions, don't they? Of Grimm's. Yeah. I mean, I think, is it Snow White? Have the wicked stepmother, or was that stepsisters? I can't remember.
Oh no, that was Cinderella. That
Cinderella.
One. But the Snow White, the witch in Snow White, and various other tales was the inspiration for Maleficent.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's an upstate Disney version, all about the witch, so to speak. And yeah, that was quite good.
Mm-hmm. So they, so when they looked at their first edition, they started to take out some of the tales that they had collected because they wanted it to be pure German.
Right.
More than European, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they received huge amounts of tales that they already had in their collection and new tales, versions of tales, and they would decide to replace one tale with another version, to delete some of the tales or then include them in the footnotes. And in contrast to the final 1857 edition, most of the tales in the first edition are a lot shorter and sparser, and they have a rawness that actually was later very much refined and embellished.
Right.
Okay, let's look at Rapunzel for an example. In the first edition, once upon a time, there was a husband and wife who had been wishing for a child for many years, but it had been in vain. Finally, the woman became pregnant. Now, in the back of their house, the couple had a small window that overlooked a fairy garden filled with all kinds of flowers and herbs, but no one ever dared enter it.
Right.
Right? That's sort of basically. And then
Yeah.
as we go on to the 7th edition, it becomes once upon a time there was a husband and wife who for quite some time had been wishing in vain for a child. Finally, the dear Lord gave the wife a sign of hope that their wish would be fulfilled. Now, in the back of their house, the couple had a small window that overlooked a splendid garden filled with the most beautiful flowers and herbs. The garden, however, was surrounded by a high wall, and nobody dared enter it because it belonged to a sorceress who was very powerful and feared by all. You see the
Right.
difference?
Yeah, there's a little bit
Yeah.
more information in the 7th edition,
A
isn't there?
lot more embellishment
Just to
comes in,
pad it
and
out.
yeah, and also references to like the dear Lord. So we've got religious overtones coming through now as
Yeah, you've
well.
got like a Christian reference, so yeah, I can see why they're trying to sort of, yeah, pad them out and soften them a bit as well.
So we've got other themes starting to come through by the 7th edition. We've got, like I said, these religious overtones, and you've got substitutions of sorceresses.
Yeah, that's it. In the first edition, you've got obviously it's the fairies' garden, and then by the 7th edition, the fairies had sold it to an evil sorceress.
Exactly. Now, Wilhelm also concealed a later scene in the first edition when Rapunzel reveals, very scandalous this bit, that she apparently had sex with the prince and was now pregnant by him.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, but that obviously that's never going to hit the Disney, is it?
No. Not bad.
So you can see from the first edition through to the 7th edition how things got changed and omitted and became almost, they evolved it to become more acceptable. Different versions of the story become more acceptable. Now, other differences in the editions show in the first Snow White, it was her mother, not her stepmother, that wants to kill the girl out of envy.
Yeah.
So we get the narrative of the wicked stepmother scenario coming in.
Yeah.
There is a tale called The Wild Man, in which a mysterious, powerful king helps a boy who has helped him escape from a cage. Now, this was embellished and transformed into a long tale titled Iron Hands, and the Wild Man in the 1812 version is more kind than the stern Iron Hands, who determines the young man's destiny. It's a coming-of-age story, effectively.
Yeah.
And the devil in the green coat is renamed Bearskin, and has a totally new beginning and meaning. So they've changed some of the tales themselves, but within that, I think you can see you're right. Again, they set out to record cultural influences and evolution, and they kind of did it themselves as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, so these embellishments. So it's the Brothers Grimm that are actually embellishing the original short, sharp, and to the point fairy tales. Because some of these are literally sort of just a couple of lines, aren't they?
To be fair, it sounds a bit like like in the movie American Pie, when that girl goes, "Oh, at band camp we did this and we did that, and this was the outcome." It's like almost one of those stories, isn't it?
It seems that way from the first edition. It's a lot shorter.
Yeah. You just
And-
need the words "at band camp."
Yeah.
Set it up. Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah. It's a lengthening, and you've got lots of political overtones coming through throughout. By the time the 7th version comes through, it is it's diverse, and like I say, you can see the evolution through it. Now, I think the first edition is purer, effectively. It's a lot purer. It deals in the belief systems, magic, superstitions, transformations, that kind of thing. And that's kind of like the hopes and dreams of reflective of how bad the conditions were at the time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You know, now the other common myth is that people thought that they collected these from like the peasants, as they were, you know, normal everyday people. But that's not strictly true, because a lot of these tales came from literate people who the Grimms came to know quite well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now evidence shows that these people often obtained their tales from illiterate or anonymous informants. So although the Grimms have collected these tales, they've kind of gone to their scholarly, academic kind of friends and acquaintances, not gone out travelling the countryside as we all thought. Yeah, they haven't done that. What's happened is where these people, you know, these scholars and that are living, they're sort of automatically, without even realising it, collecting these tales and then passing them along. So it's come through, again, word of mouth has changed it, and by the time it's got to the Grimms, it's like a different form and a different mindset relating the tales. So that's important to, you know, like remember as well. It's like I tell you a story. No, someone comes to me out of the paranormal field, tells me what's happening, and I go, right, okay, thank you very much. I then come back to you guys. We discuss it amongst ourselves, but by the time we then go to, say, the SPR, we've embellished it a lot more, and we've put our understanding upon that initial telling. So it's so far removed from the first telling that although it's the same story, it's also a completely different subtle inflections through language and knowledge that has been put onto that story. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is why we get it. Now, it doesn't change the fact that the first edition are very raw tellings. They're the ones that did a lot more of that embellishment. And it's all of the stories, as I say, they're all about hope and transforming your horrible crap situation into something better. Okay. So there you go.
Interesting.
It's fascinating when you actually look at it. The work they were doing should not be underestimated.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Quite frankly. Now, Wilhelm and his older brother Jacob, they studied German folklore and all oral traditions. We've demonstrated that already. Now, oh my God, Briar Rose, Little Red Riding Hood, they have been adapted into many, as we said at the beginning of the show, TV shows, movies, all that sort of thing. And it's just like, it's one of those, isn't it, where you have to look at it and go, what's the true story behind it?
Yeah. You know there is a sort of a true story, but you know, sort of once the filmmakers and stuff get their hands on it, you know, they embellish it more. But couldn't this be sort of like a continuation of the embellishment?
Of course it is.
I would say it would have been embellished constantly.
Like I say, every story through telling gets embellished in some way or form, and it depends on your own personal, you know, standing.
And this is how the great stories come to be, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, these stories were originally passed down from generation to generation, generally by women passing the time, like household chores, you know what I mean? Things like that. You've got to remember the times that they lived in. You've got great changes going on, industrial revolution, you've got wars going on, you've got all sorts of things going on. Those things change cultures. Those things are fundamental in changing the roots of a culture. And so they change. They
Change
evolve.
with the times, you know, and as you said, you know, they come off the back of the Napoleonic Wars and stuff like that, and those would have been quite traumatic times across the whole of Europe, not just in Germany or what was to become Germany, and sort of as time and as time sort of eased, because there was quite a long period of peace after the Napoleonic Wars, you can see these stories becoming more lighter, less darker, and more lighter in their telling.
Exactly. You've got desperation coming through, even in things like Cinderella, where the stepsisters cut off their toes and heels to try to fit into the slipper to get out of the state that they're living in at the time. To be,
I definitely think they should have kept that one in.
You can understand why they revised them for children, don't you?
Yeah, no, they should just have kept them in the original form. Why ruin a good thing?
Oh, honestly, bless their little cotton socks. Now, in 1830, King Ernest Augustus actually demanded oaths of allegiance from all professors at Göttingen, which was the university city where Jacob and Wilhelm taught Germanic studies. Now, brothers themselves actually refused to pledge to the king, and along with 5 other professors, the Göttingen 7 were made to leave the city. Jobless and branded as political dissidents, the brothers were forced to borrow money from friends as they worked on their story collection. So they're very moralistic themselves.
Well, yeah. Not to take the pledge or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're demanded to. You got to believe in what you pledge allegiance to, really, ain't you?
I have to say, I really admire people that can do that. Feel that strongly that they are prepared to cut their nose off to spite their face, basically. Because what harm does it do?
Yeah.
Pledge to a king, pledge to a political party. Oh, well, I say that, but then you look at Nazi Germany and you pledge to Nazism. It's not quite, no. Do you know what I mean? That's when you go, no. I know it's slightly different. I'm going off topic a little bit here.
Yeah, but then America has done it with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. They believe in their country.
Not the person or party running it.
No. No.
Yeah. It's a difficult, I mean, I say that. I don't know. I've never been put in that position.
No, fortunately, we don't have to sort of go through that, So we can consider ourselves lucky in that, I suppose.
Yeah. It's when you think about that, actually, thinking about that's quite deep. Anyway, let's move on because I could go down a rabbit hole on that one. La la la. So, where were we? We was on Grimm's Fairy Tales. Get back to topic, Kerry. Right, so now they're branded as political dissidents and have to flee the city, aren't they? That's where we were at. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Now, Wilhelm died in 1859, and the collection at this point had grown to 211 stories. Now, it also included illustrations. Jacob, who had lived with Wilhelm and his wife, died in 1863. Now, Jacob was deeply distraught after they were very close, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
After the death of his brother, and bless him. Do you know what I mean? They're brothers. I wish my boys had a bond like that. But again, that comes out of their upbringing. When you think like their father died, they're then having to help support their mother. Then their mother died, and they're having to look after their siblings. That family bond unit,
yeah,
isn't it?
It's stronger.
It's a lot stronger, and that's kind of been lost.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they didn't have computer games and like social media and stuff to ruin that sort of closeness.
Yeah, we are very sort of like detached. Yeah, it's a different way of life. You had to support one another, and if not, I mean, you would go down with the ship. Sort of when and it wasn't that uncommon. Back then, you had no social security state. I mean, the state wouldn't step in and help you if you sort of and if you lost a source of income, through a parent dying or something like that. I mean, so you had to make do and the only way you could do it was to be sort of close and sort of, a problem shared is a problem halved, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's like,
which I do think is being lost now.
Mm.
Partly to do, oh, anyway, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole because that's another rabbit hole we could go down.
Mhm.
But let's have a look because, some we've said they wanted to keep their stories purely to do with German folklore. However,
Yeah,
when they started relating them, they realised that these weren't just stories that were German. These pop up in cultures all over the place. Cinderella, for example, appears in ancient China, ancient
yeah,
Egypt, yeah,
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 the West Indies. Wouldn't
yeah.
expect Cinderella to appear in the West Indies, would you?
No.
no,
And the details change depending on where you are culturally. So her
Hmm.
slippers are either red leather, that's in Egypt. If you was telling the story in Egypt, the slippers are red leather. Now we know them as glass now, don't we?
yeah,
Yeah,
In the West Indies, breadfruit, not a pumpkin, is the object that's transformed into the carriage.
yeah,
Whereas, like now, pumpkins is where that
yeah.
comes from. I would say that's more American, the pumpkin.
Hmm.
You know, so when you read these initially, they're familiar. They're culturally familiar across the globe.
Yeah,
In the Grimm's,
absolutely. And I think because obviously the brothers published not just the fairy tales, but they wrote books on mythology and published scholarly works linguistics
Mhm.
and medieval studies. And I think that encompasses a lot of areas, not just the European area. So they would have picked up some stories from them as well, I should imagine.
see, with Cinderella, she's called Aschenputtel
Mm.
in the Grimm's fairy tales. Her wishes come true, not from the wave of the fairy godmother's wand, but from a hazel tree. Hazel
all right.
wands. Where you think,
Yeah,
when you think about now our fairy lore, we go hazel tree, hazel wands, hazel dowsing.
dowsing. Yeah.
So that shows the relevance of the tree there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We was talking about doing a show on trees at some point, which we probably will in the future. And, where does that the mythology of trees basically? What have trees got certain things? Hazel tree was we're going back. We're going back a long, long time. And already the hazel tree is now linked because of Grimm's to a fairy godmother wand. But it was the hazel tree in the initial story that was growing on her mother's grave, which she watered with her tears.
Mm.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it becomes more potent of our understanding of where these things come from. I just think it's fascinating how
Yeah.
things evolve. It turns into a fairy godmother with a wand when initially it was just the tree. It wasn't anything to do with a fairy godmother with a wand. That's. Wouldn't you just love a fairy godmother with a wand to come down and do a bibbity bobbity boo bit?
Yeah.
I'd love it. God,
That'd
that
be
would be
brilliant,
like
wouldn't
fantastic. I want to dress like that. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, when the prince comes to find the dainty foot, again, the sisters do not shove and shriek, but dismember. Again, a difference, it was shoving and shrieking, and oh, they don't fit, and oh, god damn it, I'll just cut a bit of my foot off, as you do. You know what I
Well, yeah,
mean?
it's,
Things like that.
yeah,
Cinderella's wedding to the prince includes 2 white birds, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, that's lovely. How many weddings have you? Well, I've been to quite a few over the few years that I've been on this planet. And the dove thing, beautiful. At the end, oh, we just got married, released these beautiful white doves into the earth. Pure Disney, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And do you know what, right? I think with the original, that is just perfect because as soon as they release these white birds that cheerfully tweet at Cinderella and on their way to their happily ever after, these birds fly to the horrible stepsisters and peck out their eyes.
Yes. But
And
we
totally switching that into a horror movie, that would be so
exactly.
brilliant.
We don't. Yeah, but now it's pure Disney. We don't. Oh, it's just release the birds, woohoo! But
Yeah,
again, you've got a religious overtone there. Noah released a bird to find land. Hope.
They need. I think Disney now needs to branch out into horror movies and do the original. I think that would be so brilliant.
Awesome. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
It would, wouldn't it? Original horror film by Disney. Cinderella.
We now
or they could do it like the theatre production of Cinderella, S-I-N, wouldn't it?
Oh God.
They could call it like that, couldn't they?
Oh my Lord.
Cinderella.
Although I have to say, no, I'm not going to go down that one. The funniest stage show I think or stage adult pantomime is all I'm going to say. I think I've ever seen in my life. I nearly wet myself that night. Funniest thing ever. Anyway, I've gone off topic again. But I think you're starting to see now that it's like that's karma, effectively, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a sort of like all the modern interpretations of the fairy tales are sort of like karma based, aren't they? You know, they do follow a train, don't they? Yeah. Someone that's sort of hard up, being sort of badly treated, but ends up coming good, sort of marrying the prince and everything. I mean, and everyone sort of loves it when karma happens, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think because they got told off and wouldn't swear allegiance when they were banished, it really set in stone that they wanted to highlight their homeland and their heritage.
Yeah.
So that it never got forgotten. It didn't just vanish. I think that's what they thought when King, whoever it was, took over. They wouldn't swear allegiance to him. And I think that's, become a good way, their way of being able to maintain some of their culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, my Lord. So this is, we're actually, starting to find that this is not the pretty little lovely fairy stories that we all know and love today.
No.
On that
We're
note,
finding out they're better.
Wow. Depending on your point of view. Right, we're actually coming to the end of the first half.
Oh, really?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Mm-mm. So you sound surprised, Richard.
We're gonna take a quick break, and we'll come back right after this.
Hello, Harry Price here. If there's nothing me and my friends enjoy more here on the other side, it is to sit back and relax and listen to the Paranormal Concept Show, right here on the PAUK Radio Network. Broadcasting a plethora of interesting and informative content for all your paranormal needs. Find them across social media to keep up to date with forthcoming shows and all their other adventures. Hello, is there anybody there?
And welcome back to the Paranormal Concept Show, exclusive to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Now, before the break, we kind of explored the world of Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm and what actually drove them to write the Grimm's fairy tales, and actually learned that it wasn't for children. It's not fairy tales. It was a collection of folklore stories that actually changed a lot from the first edition through to the 7th edition, and was embellished, and the collection of stories came from their scholarly friends and academics who had actually learnt them from the people around them. So Grimm's has sort of got these tales third hand. Now, we also learn that some of the stories are very, very grim. Grim by name, grim by nature, guys.
Well, that's right.
And that's why I like them so much.
And the turbulence of the political, status that they were doing this in, and their own personal drives for doing what they were doing to preserve oral traditional folklore, Germanic folklore predominantly, but how that these themes cropped up in cultures across the globe, which is why they resonated so well, quite frankly. So let's have a look at some of the stories that aren't quite so well known. And see where we go with that. Right, so some of these you aren't going to recognise at all, guys. Or you might. Let's see, shall we? So,
Yeah.
let's have a look at the first one. The mouse, the bird and the sausage.
I know, it sounds so far out there, doesn't it?
It does. It's a little tale about a mouse, a bird and a sausage who all live together. To make their household a cohesive unit, they each have a specific role within the home. The bird collects wood for the fire. The mouse is in charge of collecting water, lighting the fire and setting the table. And the sausage keeps everyone well fed.
As you do.
As you do. Right, one day the bird decides they should change roles because he does all the hard work, right?
Well, yeah, going out, lifting all that firewood and everything, coming back. Yeah, you would have thought so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, he's like,
And
flying
because
around
it's
all
a
day.
German tale, the sausage is Wurst. That's German for sausage, by the way.
Okay,
Okay.
right,
Bratwurst is boiled sausage.
okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Well
Little
done.
German lesson for you.
Little German for you.
Yeah,
Now,
that's me done for the show now.
okay, so they decide that they should change roles because he does all the hard work. So the bird's getting a bit fed up. He feels like he's flying around all day, collecting wood, does the hard, heavy lifting. So he says, I want a break. You guys, we're going to have to change roles. So the sausage goes out to collect the wood, but he becomes a dog snack. The mouse tries to cook like the sausage by throwing her body into the pot to season everything and dies, obviously. And the bird, well, he falls into the well when collecting water and drowns.
Oh, so what is the moral of this story then?
Be happy
Leave
with
it
your lot
cold.
in life. Basically, you should be happy
Yeah.
with what you've been given, your role.
Yeah. Stick to the hand you're dealt with.
Stick to what you know
Yeah,
and what you're good at.
and what you're good at. Yeah, I
fancy
think.
strengths. I think that's quite a good moral story.
The thing with this one is, I think this when I was reading this one, you know, last week we were talking about your own specific skill set
Yeah.
Yeah,
and transferable skills, but within that skill set, you know what you're good at. Just use what you're good at in whatever way you can to live your authentic self.
yeah,
Yeah. There are some things I'm not good at. I know I'm not good at it. Talked about running a marathon last week, didn't we?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, do you remember?
yeah.
Yeah, we thought you were
This kind of like relates, doesn't it? When you think
Oh,
about
yeah.
it.
Yeah, and it's sort of telling you to sort of like be comfortable in what you do as well. Don't you know?
There's no
I
one
mean-
better at collecting wood than a bird.
Yeah. So yeah,
Matchstick maker. He might be better at collecting wood.
Huh?
Matchstick maker.
A matchstick maker?
yeah. Unfortunately, nowadays there was just the three of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel sorry. Was it? And who took up the role of the sausage that had to throw themselves into the frying pan?
A mouse.
Oh dear, poor
Yeah.
mouse. Yeah.
Oh, a bit stupid.
So
He
one
thought he'd
person-
season it.
So you can look at this as one person dissatisfaction in their job lot has a wider knock-on effect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically.
You know, what's good for you and what you're good at, and other people may not be so good at. So you should sort of be happy.
I suppose
you-
it can also mean that you should be comfortable with who you are and not
Yeah.
change. And I know it's looking quite deep into it, but yeah, it's just be proud of who you are, and that's very prevalent at the moment.
Yeah, and
with the Black Lives Matter type thing.
yeah,
Gay
and,
pride.
Or
Yeah.
that one.
and yeah, sort of be happy with your lot and be content with
Who you are.
with the contribution you're making.
I
Yeah.
have to say though, this is quite, when we look at that story, yeah, and it's like basically you're good in your original role and you should be happy with that. There's no striving for achievement or it doesn't give you any motivation. It's basically be happy with what you've got. So if you live if you're poor, then be happy with what you've got.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that, yeah, all right, but accept what you're good at and be great at that and be happy with that. But there's no expansion of that. I mean, the bird, rather, if he was unhappy with his lot by collecting wood, he could have expanded that skill rather than changed that skill.
Yeah.
And that story doesn't sum that up, does it? It doesn't say, well, he wasn't very happy just collecting wood, so he went on to do thatching of roof, or created a fantastic thatched roof for the family.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah, but you want to try and keep it simple so people can actually find the moral in that story.
Yeah, but
you don't want to overcomplicate it too much.
But the moral of that story is you've got to be happy with what you've been given, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's a deeper meaning to that, because they have a skill set that's really specific to each, the mouse, the bird, and the sausage. They each have a specific skill set. Now, the sausage, rather than just feeding his family, could have expanded that into, utilising that and becoming better and more fulfilled through an expansion of the original uniqueness of his original role, rather than let's all swap roles and it all goes horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a downtrodden, it's quite a, although it's a moral story of, be happy with what you've got, there's no expansion of self within that.
And it could also say as well that you shouldn't trust birds.
Yeah, they're the ones that upset the apple cart,
Because
right, guys?
It was the evil bird
The
that
evil
decided
bird.
they change roles.
The cat and mouse in partnership. Let's have a look at this one. Now, it's not particularly moralistic, this one, but it's very bleak. And this is, I think, because you remember, this is early 19th century, that these are being written down. So the cat and mouse decide to live together and buy a pot of fat to get them through the winter. Beautiful, right?
Yep.
However, they decide to keep the pot in a safe place, which is under an altar at a church, only using it if necessary.
Right.
Cats being cats, he makes up a story and says she's becoming a godmother in order to secretly visit the church. So she asks the mouse to stay and watch their place. The cat comes home and eventually becomes a godmother 2 more times. Each time, the mouse asks the name of the godchildren, and the cat's responses are top off, half done, and all gone. Now, of course, that's referring to the fat. Greedy little cat is all I'm saying on this one. The mouse is a bit thick, doesn't catch on until they go to the church and sees the empty pot. Then the cat eats the mouse. The end.
Right. So that story sounds familiar. I mean, or perhaps I'm just having an attack of deja vu as you were reading that out, Kerry. But to say, traditionally cats and mice do not get on, do they? I mean,
No. Maybe that's why they don't trust each other. Because the cat was stitched up. Well, the mouse was stitched up there.
Very much so.
Yeah.
But
although the cat could have died choking on the mouse, I suppose.
Well, he could have done. That would have been ultimate karma right there.
Yeah. Oh, but then I've embellished the story.
Ah, you've gone embellishing. Now, when I was reading this, I was just thinking, this is Tom and Jerry all over.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
I think that's where my mind was straying to when you was reading it out.
Because they always ended up best mates at the end, didn't they? But Tom was always trying to capture Jerry and overcome Jerry. But Jerry was always the clever one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always one step ahead.
Always one step ahead. Not on this case, though, in this particular story.
No.
What's the moral of this story? Don't trust anybody with your food stash.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the moral?
Well, don't trust anybody is what I would read that as.
Well, if you've got something as valuable as a food stash, which keeps you alive, you're probably better off sorting it out for yourself
See, I
than,
think
relying on others.
I think for me, this basically says always eat your own food. Right? Like there's this big thing about when people go to meals and they sort of all nick each other's food. Personally, I
food
think
sharing.
No, that's all wrong.
Oh,
If I
you're
order
Joey
food-
from Friends here.
Well, yeah, Joey from Friends, but also it was James Corden in Gavin and Stacey. He was like very much, this is what I want, this is why I've ordered it. If you wanted what I've got, you order it as well. Don't pinch mine because I like it. This is my food.
Well, this is the cat eating all the food, though, so there's no
Exactly,
sharing at all going on.
Well, yeah, exactly. So that's sort of what I get from that. Eat your own food.
Right, let's have a look at the juniper tree. Now, this is a little disturbing account of a young boy who is murdered by his stepmother. Now, obviously, stepmothers are always evil.
Yes.
Knowing that the son will inherit everything upon his father's death, the stepmother decapitates the young boy when he reaches into a box for an apple. Not wanting anyone to know what happened, the stepmother devises a plan to make her daughter believe she did it, and then the stepmother cooks the poor boy and feeds him to his father. The young girl then buries the bones underneath the juniper tree, where the little boy's mother is also buried. The boy turns into a bird, sings his song to various people who give him a gold chain, red shoes and a millstone. The bird gives the father the chain, the little girl the shoes, and the stepmother, well, the millstone drops on her head. Lovely. The little boy is once again alive, and he, along with his father and sister, enter the house and have dinner. Lovely.
I think that's
Boom,
very
boom.
reminiscent of Hansel and Gretel as well, isn't it? If they tweaked it a little bit, that's sort of the same story.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was sort of trying to think of the moral behind this one.
I think this one demonstrates the importance of inheritance.
Right.
Okay. Now, nowadays, we have wills, and we can divide our estate, as it were, to where we wish it to go.
Right, yes.
Okay, in your sound mind, you go to a solicitor and you go, right, I've got two more. For me, I've got two children, a sister, mum and dad. Them, obviously, my if they're alive by the time I die, obviously, that's who I would want the majority of my estate to go to. But then you've got extended people off of that, right? So back then, it would go automatically to your firstborn son.
Yeah.
The firstborn son inherits, a bit like the monarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've married into that, you're not the mother. It's not going to go to you. It's going to go to the son because you married into it.
Oh, I see what you're getting
Do you
at.
see what I mean?
Yes.
Which is why the evil stepmother, she knows that the kid's going to inherit it if the dad dies, so she wants to preserve her way of life by taking out the inheritance side of things. Because if there's no living relative of the father, it will go to her through marriage.
Yes, because women can't inherit, can they? Mm-hmm. And
Unless there's no living relative and you're married, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We've actually had this in the family recently. So, it goes, if the will hasn't been changed or there's no living relative, because wills weren't around back then.
Yeah.
Get rid of that, and then you're going to then inherit for you and your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is where the step situation comes in, which is what complicates things an awful lot. But this model of the evil stepmother comes in, like they marry, it's not a love match. It's always seen as a love match initially when you marry for the first time. If that doesn't work or the partner dies, then they remarry. There's always seems to be a nefarious, monetary gain in that scenario.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, I think. It's never seen as a love match, a remarriage. It's
No,
always seen as a
because
convenience.
if your first wife dies, your spouse dies, it would be, because the head of the household, the father, would need to marry someone to sort of take care of the house
Yeah, very
and
very outdated
children.
perspective now.
Hmm.
Most people say that their second or their third marriage is their love match more than their first marriage. Because you get
Yeah.
older and wiser, basically, and you know what you're going to accept and what you don't accept from your partner. And,
Yeah.
so you've got to look at this in the spectrum of when this story was told.
Yeah, and
So,
this is
this is
yeah.
that spectrum, which is why the evil
Mm.
stepmother are getting rid of the competition for inheritance for gain purposes. So, what I find interesting about this is that he dies, he gets eaten, basically. She chops his head off, and they actually eat this boy.
Yeah,
He then gets reincarnated as a bird,
and there's
a strong bird at that.
the
And
Carrie
again,
Millstone.
again with the bird thing, right?
Yeah.
They're evil. Now he's telling you that a bird will drop stones on your head. I mean, going back to the first story, the bird thought he had a lot to do. When in actual fact, it was the mouse that had so much work to do because all the bird was doing was collecting the wood. The mouse had to collect the water, do the fire, and set the table.
The mouse, and the second story as well, the cat and mouse partnership.
Exactly.
Poor old mouse loses out there and all, don't he?
Yeah, but the birds. I mean, the first and third story is the birds are evil. These Grimm people must have a right thing about birds, I think.
So you can look at the latter half of the tale when basically the boy comes back. It is the classic karma ending, isn't it? And and sort of like a warning to stepmothers out there. Be careful what you wish
the
for.
Birds.
Yeah, or don't kill the sun, basically.
I wonder if it. I wonder if it inspired. What's his name? The bloke who done the Birds, Alfred Hitchcock, the Birds, and Edgar Allan Poe, the Raven.
I don't know, but birds aren't the nicest of creatures, really, when you think about it.
Because not in the Grimm stories, they're not.
He doesn't just reincarnate as a bird. He reincarnates as a talking bird. Also, an incredibly strong bird because he can carry around a gold chain, red shoes, and a millstone.
Yeah.
And then, not just that, but he's a miracle because once he's got rid of the stepmother, he then he said, "Oh, I'm alive again with my head that was decapitated and my flesh that you all ate."
Yeah.
Weird. But the juniper tree, that's incredibly interesting because that's where they buried the bones, which is where it comes from. Juniper, the tree of resurrection.
Yeah. Again, that's from the folklore, isn't it?
Exactly. Crazy. And also going to the birds, go back to Cinderella. Those beautiful birds that we release at weddings. Picking out the sisters.
Yeah.
Yeah. You watch them birds, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Keep an eye on the birds. Evil things.
Evil. Evil, I say.
Yeah.
Right, have a look at Hans the Hedgehog. A man and wife are so desperate a child that they even wish for a hedgehog.
As you do.
As you do, yeah.
Oh my God.
I can see couples everywhere going, "Oh, I can't have kids. Let's have hedgehog instead."
Let's have hedgehog. Well, to be fair, they are quite cute. Well, oh God. Well, their wish comes true when the wife gives birth to a half a hedgehog, half boy baby. Not quite what they were expecting, right?
Yeah, don't mix your species.
No.
Oh God.
So I think they were into genetics.
Oh dear. Yeah, half hedgehog. That must have been a birth to behold.
That could really hurt if they come out the wrong way.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's not go any further with that thought pattern, lads. Not wanting to have anything to do with him, the parents pile some straw behind a stove and leave him there. Hans knows he's not wanted, so he asks his father for some bagpipes and a cockshod, a rooster basically, and tells him if he can have those two things, he will leave and never return. While living in a tree and playing his bagpipes, he helps two kings find their way back home, but only if they promise him their daughters. The first king is sneaky and says yes, but really means no, while the other agrees. Hans injures the first king's daughter and marries the second king's daughter. Come the wedding night, Hans sheds his hedgehog skin to become a very handsome young man. He also forgives his father.
Wow. I know during the break you did ask us to sort of like talk about the morals of these stories. It's quite difficult.
I know. I think with this one, it's a story about judging people, especially by the looks, especially with the ending bit. Anyway,
Hedgehog. It's a bloody hedgehog.
Yeah.
Right. However, this reminds me of is it the Princess and the Frog?
Yeah. Again, that's the same sort of thing, isn't it? Don't judge people by the way they look.
This reminds me of the guy who, oh God, Rats, Pipes, Pied Piper of Hamelin.
Yeah.
Reminds me of that. It's got overtones of that. In there. There are other things, other themes that I see running through this. Yes, I mean, you can look at it coldly and it's a joke, right? She gives birth to a half a hedgehog, half boy, right? Gets rid of him, bagpipes and, and a rooster. And then just happens to have two kings come along, as you do.
This was an English story.
What, this particular one?
Yeah, because isn't England the only place you get the hedgehogs?
No.
No.
I didn't think they had them in Europe and all that.
Yeah, they do have it.
Oh, okay.
This is Germany, remember?
Yeah, I thought it was only this country that had them.
No.
Well, you need to get your IQ elf on that one.
Yeah, I will do.
Well, once these disposed of, it seems to me, be careful what you wish for. It seems to be a touch of that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I suppose be careful what you wish for. I mean, God, if you... What do you
Don't usurp a want for a child with anything else.
Yeah, but I know plenty of couples that were desperate for a child and got a dog. Do you know what I mean? Or a cat, because they couldn't fall and then they fell pregnant. It doesn't mean they ended up with a half dog, half child, or a half cat, half child. I think that's quite a normal human response, really. Plenty, they and then obviously you come into the don't get rid of the dog or cat because you've had your child. Just saying, everybody out there. The half hedgehog, half boy baby is a bit weird, bit of a weird twist.
Yeah, I can't see where that actually sort of comes from. What the moral is of that, or particularly that motif within this story.
Because they then reject it.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is about, accept what you're given.
Yeah.
He embraced his skills.
Yeah.
He was happy to live in a tree and play his bagpipes.
Bagpipes? It must have been annoying if he lived in the tree next to him.
God, yeah.
Bagpipes.
God, yeah. I thought they were Scottish bagpipes. But they're not, are they?
No, they're sort of, you get Irish pipes and, those sort of bagpipes are quite common across Europe, sort of different sort of groups have different sort of variations of the pipes. When I lived in Australia, I used to have a guy that lived over the back of me quite a way, and he was a bagpipe player. Used to practice every Sunday. Oh, dearie me.
Oh, my God.
Okay, hedgehogs are not found in Australia or America.
Oh, there you go.
Right, it's the only two places in the world.
Yeah.
Ah, there you go, Paul.
Yeah, learned something today.
Yeah, got the IQ elf on that. That's good.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
IQ Elf.
Yeah.
I like that. The first king is sneaky and says yes, but really means no. Yes, 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 no.
Yeah, he's sort of just quick to take yes. Yeah, that's an odd tale.
They're all odd tales, let's be fair, Richard.
Yeah.
Okay. But, all comes well in the end. He sheds his hedgehog skin, becomes a very handsome young man, forgives his father, and the daughter of the king is obviously, no doubt, very grateful indeed.
Yeah.
Because having sex with a hedgehog is what I'm saying. That's where my brain went on that one. Mm-hmm.
I wonder what half was hedgehog and what half was
I
man.
don't even want to think about it. I kind of was imagining the bottom half being the hedgehog bit.
That'd be painful, surely.
Yeah, I know, right? But how grateful was that daughter?
I'll tell you, it'd make a brilliant horror movie.
Yeah.
Okay, we are
Disney
going to...
really want to get onto these for horrors, I'm telling you.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, dearie me. This is like reminiscent of Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it?
It is really good.
Oh, my God. Rapunzel. I know we've talked about Rapunzel earlier in the show.
Oh, yeah.
But we are going to have another little look at Rapunzel because we demonstrated the difference between the first edition and seventh edition, how they began and whatnot. Yeah. But the tale, this is the tale itself, is another tale of a couple who want a child to call their own, but with a different outcome. So while the woman is pregnant, she has a strong craving for rampion, which grows in her neighbour's yard, and her husband frequently sneaks into the yard to take some of the rampion for his wife. He gets caught and is forced to promise the child to his neighbour, Dame Gothel. The evil enchantress locks their beautiful daughter Rapunzel in a tower that can only be entered by climbing Rapunzel's long golden locks. One day, the king's son goes by. I love this. How many kings and sons are there?
Yeah.
Well, I think at that period in time, there would have been loads, wouldn't there?
There probably was. The king's son goes by and figures out how to get inside, and he and Rapunzel fall in love. When the dame finds out, she cuts off Rapunzel's hair and banishes her to the desert, where she gives birth to twins. So obviously she's got pregnant by the guy.
Yeah.
She had sex with him. She didn't just fall in love. They had sex. Yeah. She falls pregnant. She's banished to the desert. It's all bad. She gives birth to twins. The dame also blinds the king's son. But this is true love. He eventually finds his way to Rapunzel and is healed. Oh, true love will out.
Yeah, but there is a major flaw in this story.
What's that then?
Well, the evil enchantress locks their beautiful daughter Rapunzel in a tower that can only be entered by climbing Rapunzel's long hair.
Yeah.
How did she get in the tower?
Well, the enchantress put her there.
Yeah, but how?
Oh,
you can only get into the tower climbing.
Well, she's an enchantress.
She's a magic.
It's magic.
No, I didn't say that there. It's
I
odd.
think the clue's in the evil enchantress thing.
I don't know.
How did Rapunzel's long golden hair grow that long?
Yeah.
My hair doesn't grow that long. I know I'm not Rapunzel, everybody.
No, you might if you don't get it cut.
I don't get my hair cut.
Yours only sort of stays a certain length, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, my mum used to have hair right down to the back of her knees.
I actually know a lady who's got long blonde hair, and it sweeps the floor, and it's beautiful.
There you go.
It's beautiful.
There you go. So you can have long hair.
She is the ultimate Timotei lady.
Oh, right. Well, she sell it for weeks.
Have your eye out.
No. She just...
Because I know people do that, don't they? With certain good hair, they grow it long and then sell it, don't they?
No, she doesn't do that. She keeps her hair, but she's always had this amazing...
I say, at the moment, there's a charity, isn't there, that takes people's hair and makes it into wigs for children with cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. But Rapunzel was a bit selfish. She didn't do that. Well, maybe they did that once they cut off her hair.
Yeah, possibly.
Maybe.
Yeah. No one knows whatever happened to her hair.
But that sort of story in itself, that hasn't changed much, has it? over the years.
No.
I sort of recognise that story for what it is. The Rapunzel story. There may be a few little quirks in it, but generally that is one story that hasn't changed.
Well, apart from the ending, where she's banished to the desert to give birth to twins, and the king's son is blinded, and
Oh no, I think I do remember the bit that he was blinded and like how he found her and stuff. I'm sure that's in a cartoon or something of it.
I thought he blinded the evil enchantress.
Oh, I don't know. Someone's blinded anyway.
Didn't she turn into a dragon?
I think most of them do, don't they?
And then he blinded the evil enchantress, and they lived happily ever after. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen that film.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
Maybe she couldn't get into the tower because the only way was up her air when she weren't there.
I don't know. Anyway, true love will out.
Yeah.
I think is the moral of the story there.
Yeah.
The three snake leaves.
Yep, that's the next one.
This is the next one, right?
Well-known story, this.
As you know, right, the young princess, again, princesses, will only marry if her intended agrees to one thing. If she dies first, he will be buried alive with her. A young man from a poor family leaves his home so that he can earn his keep and not be burdened to his father. He meets this princess and falls madly in love with her, agreeing to her demand. They are married, but after a while she becomes ill and dies. He follows through on his word and is placed in the vault with her coffin. While in there, a snake appears and he hacks it into 3 pieces. Another snake appears and heals the dead snake with 3 leaves, and they both leave. The husband then places the leaves on his wife. She comes back from the dead. However, she no longer loves him, throws him overboard with the help of her lover while on a sea voyage. His servant rescues him, and they tell the king everything. The princess and her lover are then sent out to sea on a sinking ship. The end.
The end.
No divorcing in that.
No, I mean, come on now.
Right.
But this is almost like, for this one, she is the self-indulgent, super entitled princess, isn't she?
Well, yeah, she certainly sounds like it. Yeah, sort of making a demand like that, but more for him for going along with it.
Well, he's a poor man from, a young man from a poor family. Doesn't want to be a burden. He's moralistic and ethically, he's in the right here. He does everything right. He doesn't want to be a burden to his father. He agrees to the demands and sticks to his word.
Yeah.
Yeah, with that, regardless of what happens in there, in the vault, the snake thing's a bit weird, but he sticks by her. It's not his fault. She falls, she's not in love with him. That's not his fault.
Yeah.
He resurrects the girl, so he's doing everything he should, moralistic and ethically. He's acting right. Yeah. It's her. She's the one who's wrong in all the scenarios here. You wouldn't put that kind of demand on somebody to get them to marry you to start with. I mean, I don't think any man these days would agree to that, but but going back in the day, maybe. He sticks to his word and does everything and ends up triumphant. She is selfish and entitled and places unethical demands on another and ends up not being, being punished for that.
Yeah.
There's the moral to that one.
Yeah.
I think that's a horrible story.
Yeah, so if you promise something, stick to it.
Yeah. What is it? My word is my bond? Famous stockbroker saying that is.
Yeah.
My word is my bond, and that sticks even today in the stockbroker world. You have to, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And that actually is the basis of trust, isn't it?
It is.
And you should never break that trust. You don't bode well for you if you break someone's trust.
And if you do, they'll just send you away on a sinking ship. Well,
you'll end up not being successful. Sinking ship could be a metaphor for not necessarily a real sinking ship, but in life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She could have ended up being the poor one and he's the successful one.
Mm.
He's now got the king's ear and knows he's loyal and can be trusted, whereas she ends up, I don't know, metaphorically, in poverty, sinking ship. So, again, play on words there, but in this instance, I do think they actually meant a sinking ship.
Probably.
Right, the ungrateful son. This is
Kerry,
quite...
there's no food.
That's an ungrateful son right there.
Yeah.
There you go, no food.
There we go.
Go
End of story. A greedy son who is about to sit down to a dinner of roasted chicken sees his elderly father coming to the door. Not wanting to share his meal, he hides the chicken. Once his father leaves, the son goes to retrieve his meal. Unfortunately for him, the chicken has become a frog, latches onto his face, never letting go. That's it.
Well, I think that's the whole basis of Alien, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. That's Alien right there.
Your father sacrifices so much for you, and you couldn't even share your meal with him.
Yeah, I
But
suppose,
to be fair, if the son's got chicken and the dad wanted it, he should have ordered chicken for himself as well.
And there
Stop
goes the
thinking
man.
everyone else's food.
And there's the word of a man who doesn't like to share food.
Yeah, the son likes chicken, so he ordered chicken because he likes chicken and he wants to eat chicken.
Yeah, but again...
The dad comes along and he orders a korma, and he don't want just a korma, he wants some of the chicken.
Oh, my God.
You should have ordered the chicken as well.
We're back to James Blinking Corden. That man has a lot to answer for, is all I'm saying. Anyway, but that's about sharing, isn't it? An elderly father, he brought you up.
Maybe he should have shared his meal, yeah.
One person you should share things with is your family.
Yeah.
Well, laughs on him. He became a frog and stuck to his face and never let him go. Ha ha.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got we like this one. I like this one. Rumpelstiltskin. I like Rumpelstiltskin. Right. A miller tells his king that his daughter can spin straw into gold, which, obviously is a lie. The king, who is intrigued, wants to see this girl, locks her in a room, threatens her life if she doesn't turn the straw into gold. Now, a little creature-like man helps her out, once for a necklace, twice for her ring, and thrice for her firstborn son. She marries the king, and when their firstborn arrives, so does the little man, and he tells her that if she can figure out his name in 3 days, she can keep the baby. On day 3, someone overhears him speaking his name and tells the queen, Rumpelstiltskin. He becomes so enraged that he tears himself into 2.
Yeah. That is basically a story. Well, perhaps without the tearing into 2. I think in my book he stamped his foot on the floor so hard that he went through the floor. And
never to be seen again.
Yeah, that's right.
But we've got 3s in here.
The power of 3, hey?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have discussed this before, haven't we?
We have. We've got a lot of 3s in here. We've got 1 for her necklace, twice for her ring, 3 for her firstborn son. And then he says she's got 3 days, and then she to figure out his name, and then she can keep her baby. And this, bless her. This girl again. This is like the father of the daughter tells the king, poor woman in this. Yeah, she would go, Dad, I can't spin blinking straw into gold. What are you talking about? Now look what you've done. Now I'm locked in a cellar. Weaving straw, of all things. Do you know what I mean? That poor girl.
Yeah.
The emancipation of feminine is all I'm going to say on that one. But she becomes queen, has a baby, and guesses the name, so she's all right, Jack. Ha! Yeah, Rumpelstiltskin. Love that one. Love that's like a little demony kind of creature that comes and helps her. Little gnomey kind of creature. Beautiful.
That too would make a good horror film. If not a horror film, maybe an adult movie.
The Strange Feast. Okay. Now this is an odd one. There are two sausages, one blood and one liver, who are friends. The blood sausage invites the liver sausage over for dinner, but when the liver sausage arrives, she gets an uneasy feeling when she sees some disturbing sights. She sees a broom and a shovel fighting and a monkey with an injury. She hears a voice telling her to leave quickly, and so she goes. When she turns around, she sees the blood sausage with the sharp knife yelling, "If I had caught you, I would have had you."
There's just a whole adult movie right there.
This sounds like one of those really weird dreams that you have, right?
Makes you wonder what film was on when they wrote that one.
Well, I don't know quite how that's a moralistic tale.
Yeah, or maybe if they didn't write it, maybe whoever told them that tale was high on something.
Oh.
He wasn't on sausages, he was on mushrooms, maybe.
Maybe the sausage had mushrooms in them. I think what's interesting about this is, what does the liver do in your body?
Your liver cleans your blood, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Aids in digestion as well. Don't know, you've got your bile sac in your liver.
I thought cleaning of the blood was down to your kidneys.
I thought that was water. I thought that was part of the urinary tract.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I thought the liver did the blood.
Yeah.
Isn't that where sugar's stored as well in the liver?
Oh, I don't know. You're the bloody St. John's medic person that we've got on the show.
Yeah, I know. I'll have to look it up.
IQ Elf in the background. What does the liver do in the body? You can see where I'm going with this thought pattern. Maybe I'm searching for a meaning in this tale.
Yeah.
I haven't quite worked out what the broom and the shovel and the monkey have got to do with it, but you know.
I think what the liver does is the least of our problems. We're going to have to sort of like try and find out what, as you say, the broom and the monkey and shovel are up to. I mean, and as it says at the end of that, it is a very strange tale indeed.
Okay, it regulates chemical levels in the blood.
Yeah.
And it also creates bile.
Okay, so could the broom and the shovel be an analogy for something else?
What, animate brooms and shovels? I really don't know.
I don't know. That one probably has been lost in the annals of time.
Yes, lost in the bits and it can stay there.
I think so. Yeah, maybe, right. So let's have a look at Mother Holly. Oh my God, you know. Ah, dear. There was a woman who had two daughters, one beautiful and hard-working and the other ugly and spoiled. One day the beautiful girl is spinning by the well and injures her finger, causing her to drop the shuttle in the well. Her mother tells her to get it back, so she jumps it in the well. She ends up in a beautiful meadow where she helps a loaf of bread, an apple tree and Mother Holly, who needs her help around the house. While her life is better there, she wants to go home, so Mother Holly rewards her by covering her in gold. When she returns home, her mother wants the same for the lazy daughter. However, being lazy, when the other daughter returns, she is covered in pitch, which never comes off. Remember, if you work hard, good things will happen.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's the moral of the story then, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
If you work hard, you've got to do well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ugly and the beautiful thing, not really relevant, but, you know.
No, and I think as well, it's a little bit more of an inspiration for Through the Looking Glass, maybe, as well.
I was seeing overtones of Cinderella in that.
Well,
yeah, that is a sort of like and along those lines. I mean, when it said the beautiful and the ugly, I thought, oh, it's going to go down that route, but it doesn't. That's sort of by the by. That's just a sort of side note. It's what it is what comes afterwards. I think that's where the moral is.
Yeah. Very much so.
And I don't get this whole food thing either. You know, like we've had sausages doing all the chores of the house. Now she's chasing around a loaf of bread and an apple tree.
Hmm.
You know, what? Just can't get rid of her of that. It's like, what the hell? Who are making these stories up?
These are like peasant stories, remember?
Yeah.
I think sometimes, like, you know, if you'd actually got the original person who told the academic this story, she'd probably go, that's not what I said.
Yeah, I think there might be a lot of that, judging by some of these.
Some of these stories are a little weird, right? They're a little weird. But, you know, these are in these Grimm's fairy tales, guys. This isn't what you would recognise as Grimm fairy tales from a modern cultural point of view. But we're not lying here. These are all in the book, right?
I suppose, I mean, like, for example, Mother Holly could be a reference to Mother Nature.
Could be. Looking after the apple tree.
Well, an apple tree, could that be like the tree of knowledge? Because a lot of people believe that it was an apple tree and it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But we know the apple has a huge mythology.
So, yeah, maybe it is like a bit of a biblical thing in this one as well, because the loaf of bread fed the 5,000 with bread and fish, wasn't it, I think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe that's sort of where that's what they're referring to.
Possibly.
Yeah,
It's either that or just mental.
We'll never know.
Well, there's another tree in there. I think there must be a meaning there.
Yeah, the apple.
The apple, the fruit of Venus.
Yeah. I think there's a religious connotation to that, definitely.
Overtones in there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, let's have a look at the death of the little hen. Now, one day, a little hen and a little cock went on an adventure to Nut Hill. The little hen finds a big nut which she is supposed to share and doesn't. She then proceeds to choke on it, and the little cock runs to get water, but has to jump through many obstacles to get it. By the time he returns, she was dead. Wanting to bury her, the little cock sets off to do just that, and has some guests hop on the back of a cart, which becomes too heavy. Near a stream, the cart tips over, and all the animals drown except for the little cock. He buries the little hen, and is so sad that he dies as well. The end.
I don't know if he should be a little cock, more a big one.
Oh, this is quite a sad little story, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, you know, the death of the little hen is very misleading title. You think, oh, bless, the little hen's going to die. But when you actually read it, it's like, oh my God. But
they all die.
The poor little cock, no, the little cock doesn't, does he?
Uh,
I mean, well, he does because of sadness. But because of his actions, he tries so hard and fails.
Maybe it's to say everyone dies, get over it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He tries his best, doesn't he? And
yeah, no matter what you do in life, try your best, or just be a cock, and you know we're all going to die in the eventually, so it don't matter. Everyone's the same, aren't they?
Good God.
oh gosh, she's snoring away
Oh
now.
my Lord.
Oh no!
Oh my Lord. Right. Oh my God, it gets worse. The girl without hands. A poor miller, back to millers, comes across a man, the devil, who promises him great wealth if he can have what's behind the man's shed. Thinking that was an apple tree, the miller agrees. However, it was his daughter the devil wanted. The young girl is clean. Every time the devil comes for her, preventing him from taking her. He gives the miller an ultimatum. Cut his daughter's hands off, or the devil would take the miller instead. So the miller does cut his daughter's hands off. Fast forward, and the daughter is free, marries the king, has a son. The devil once again meddles and makes everyone believe the king wants the queen dead. The king's mother refuses to kill the queen and baby and sets them free. The queen's hands grow back, the king finds them safe, and 7 years later they live happily ever after.
Huh?
Brilliant. And that's another one to make a good horror movie.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Because she's too clean, he wants her hands cut off so she can't clean herself. So the dad does that, the Miller. Millers are not trustworthy characters, I have to say. Maybe that's the moral of the story with Millers. Rumpelstiltskin, Miller. Girl without hands, Miller. If you're a daughter and your dad is a Miller, watch out, folks. All I'm saying.
Well, yeah. Well, millers were quite corrupt back in the day. They'd be milling the corn for the bread, and they used to cut the corn with all sorts of stuff like, ground bones and everything.
Well, maybe that is what the point is. To show that Millers can't be trusted, that they're not good characters.
Yeah.
Maybe
Millers
that's what
like
it is.
birds.
Millers are like, I can't say that.
Birds.
Birds, yes, they're like birds. That's right, Paul.
Yeah.
My brain went
So-
into
so
a completely
convincing.
different analogy.
Well, yeah.
But again, the daughter becomes free, marries the king, and has a son. Everything's good. But the queen's mother refuses to kill the queen and the baby. Good old queen mum there.
Yeah.
Trusting old queen mother.
Yeah.
And then as little reward, she gets her hands back. The king finds them safe 7 years later, and they live happily ever after.
Oh.
Okay, this is quite a disturbing one. Again,
Okay.
we have another Miller's daughter, the robber bridegroom. Are you ready for this one, guys? A man sets out to marry a miller's daughter. The man asks her to come over to his house, for he had people coming over to meet his bride-to-be. When the girl gets to the small, isolated house, she finds it empty. A bird whispers to her to leave, but she decides to enter the house anyway because, let's be honest, who believes a bird, right? After looking, she finds an old woman who tells her that if she stays, then the only thing she'll marry is her death. She offers to help the girl and hides her. While the girl is hiding, a group of robbers, including her betrothed, come in dragging a girl with them. The girl, crying and pleading, was given wine, then killed, cut up into pieces to be eaten. Lovely!
Yeah.
Miller's daughter, though. Again, triumphant, the Miller's daughter. We've had 3 Miller's daughters that end up all right. If you're Miller's daughter, your dad's not so great, but you're going to be all right in the end because you're...
Your dad's a bit corrupt, but
You know.
you're all right.
Yeah.
really.
It's common to folklore.
That bird was in on it and all, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Reverse psychology or what? He was in on it. He knew. The bird knew.
Oh, my lordy lord. And no one said, where's the old woman? She finds an old woman who tells her to stay, so she
It
hides
was the
her.
bird. It was the bird. It was that enchantress.
Oh, maybe it was.
Yeah.
Let's talk about...
Stupid bird.
Oh, my lord. This is like poor women in all of this.
Yeah, women should not trust birds.
Or
Simple as
men.
that. No, just birds.
Or men.
And old women.
Or men.
Well, just show everything then, doesn't it?
And boys, don't trust your stepmother.
Well, yeah.
Or birds.
Or birds. Just don't trust birds. Oh, dear. Right, let's have a look at another bird.
Let's see if the next story pulls us away from birds then. So come on, Kerry, what is it?
It's called Fitcher's Bird.
Oh, poor birds.
A wizard disguised as a poor beggar would kidnap girls. Then he would leave the house and give them 2 tasks: to look after an egg and to not enter the forbidden room at any cost. The girl, passing by the room, lets curiosity get the best of her and enters to find a basin filled with blood and body parts. Scared, she actually drops the egg into the basin, resulting in a stain on the egg which she can't wash off. The wizard comes home, sees the stain, and knows she's been in the forbidden room. For disobeying him, the wizard kills the girl by cutting her head off and throwing her in the basin. He then goes off to kidnap other girls. The end.
Right. The end.
This is like curiosity killed the cat or what?
Mm.
It is, isn't it? And yeah, quite reminiscent of Oh, what's that movie? Wrong Turn.
I haven't seen
Right.
that.
Yeah, because they had like baths full of body parts and stuff.
Lovely.
Yeah, it was a good movie.
Won't watch a war movie, Rich, but you'll watch a horror.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right.
Jeepers. Well, I mean, they're not hard tasks to fulfill. I mean, just look after the egg and don't go in the room. Quite simple.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, you tell a woman not to do something. What's the first thing she's gonna do?
Maybe that's the moral of the story.
Yeah,
Yeah, curiosity killed the cat, didn't it?
yeah. I mean, it's like with people and big red buttons. You know, if you're told not to push that big red button, what's the one thing you got to do? Push that big red button.
Yeah, and we all hope that nobody pushes the button.
Yeah, that's it.
Or is the story that boys will do what they're told and girls won't?
Yeah,
Yeah,
possibly.
right.
Which is why only men get into power.
I don't think so.
Right, let's have a look at the poor boy in the...
Maybe it's respect your elders
Maybe it is.
because he was
Yeah.
an old wizard.
An old wizard, yeah. Let's
Yeah,
have a
we
look at the poor boy in the grave. An orphaned boy is handed to a greedy rich husband and wife to be looked after. The husband soon finds out that the boy is not really good at any deed, so he's pretty crap. Whatever task is given to the boy, he manages to mess it up. Each time the boy messes up, he is abused. One day, tired of his lack of abilities, the husband tells the boy that if he messes up again, he's going to be beaten once more. Alas, the poor boy does his deed wrong. Terrified, he decides to take his own life before giving his caretaker the opportunity to do so. He recalls the wife hiding a poison under the bed, which was actually honey. She told everyone it was poison so people would stay away from it. Realizing he is not dying, the boy recalls the husband having poison for flies, which turns out to be wine. Drunk out of his mind, the innocent boy thinks his death is approaching, and he begins to dig a grave for himself before falling into the grave and dying there, sugar buzzing out of his head and absolutely drunk as a skunk.
Yeah, what a way to go. Yeah.
That's just bad luck, that is. That poor
It
kid
is,
could
isn't
not get a break, could he?
No.
So you'd be a bit clever about that, and you blackmail the wife. Say, I found your honey stash.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like
it.
a
And
bed.
once again, don't share food.
Oh my lord.
If you want honey, order it.
You can play one off against the other. Oh yeah, I found your honey stash. I found your alcohol stash. You want me to tell the wife? She thinks you're a teetotaler. He thinks you're on a diet.
Yeah,
Yeah, he played that so wrong, bless him. But that's innocence for you, isn't it?
it is. Yeah,
But,
definitely.
oh, bless him. He's tried his hardest and he's like not very good at anything. But then again, find the task that you're good at.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And don't get and don't beat yourself up if you're not very good at something.
No.
You don't know what you might overlook treasures that you find along the way.
Yeah.
I'll find a moral in any weird tale. Right. And last but not least, let's have a look at the Goose Girl. The Goose Girl. We can all see where this one's going, I think, can't we?
Yeah.
Birds are evil.
The Goose Girl follows a princess betrothed to a prince. When the time comes to marry him, the girl's mother sends her to the prince's castle with the handmaiden and all the riches. The handmaiden, being wicked bullies the princess, exchanges clothes with her and switches horses. Upon arrival, the handmaiden fools the kingdom into thinking she is the princess due to marry the prince. The real princess is kept at the castle and is asked to help tend to the geese. Eventually, the truth comes out. The handmaiden is placed in a barrel studded with pointy nails, tied to 2 horses and dragged. Don't lie.
Yeah, don't lie.
don't lie.
Yeah. Do not try and pretend to be someone you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
At
it.
least we finished off on something quite, we could find the moral of.
Ish.
Ish,
Yeah.
yes. I'm sure there's other sort of undercurrents in there, but
And obviously, don't trust the geese because they told her, grassed her up.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
don't trust
Reminds me of
them.
The Prince and the Pauper.
Yeah.
That one.
yeah, I can see the relationship there.
So stories change and evolve over the years, and what starts off as something quite bizarre in the cultural time it was said or made up, or I mean, some of them, as we have demonstrated, I think you know, far removed from the Disney image that we have of Grimm's fairy tales these days, and the moralistic meaning has been lost in the channels of history, I would say. But some of them you can understand the relevance and why those tales would have been told. You've got stories of loyalty, of trust, of love without. You've got stories of don't lie. You've got even down to millers can't be trusted. Birds definitely
Yeah.
don't trust a bird. You know what I mean? Things like that. It's about sharing and family values and bringing those bonds of connection and treating people ethically and morally right, running through these tales in even the most bizarre way of being put out there in a tale. You can find something in there that will resonate. With more modern tales that we've related to, the religious connotations coming through, political connotations coming through, you can see how they sound so bizarre, but when you dig a bit deeper into these tales, not all of them, some of them have been lost, but some of them you still have a ring of truth to them. Grimm's fairy tales are something that we have been born and bred on without even realising it throughout our time, and it's something that sits deep now. It does. It comes up time and time again, and it's Grimm. They should be celebrated and respected for the work they did in collecting these stories together. Don't you yawn, Richard?
I'm not yawning.
You did.
I breathed in.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm just calling you out, having a little yawn in my monologue. Am I waffling?
No,
Doing really well, then.
I've just caught my breath.
I said like a yawn to me, that's all I'm saying. So, you shouldn't underestimate the importance of these tales and the work that the Grimm's fairy tale, the Grimms did initially through hard times and cultural disruption that they lived through, and they had morals and ethics that they stuck to within their own life, and that is something that we can all learn from. On that note, have we got any news to share, my beautiful boys?
Only that there'll be another blog very soon. I've nearly finished it, so
Yay!
that'll be out and on the socials and stuff on the website.
Oh, so I've got that to look forward to. I'll be writing off the back of that, so I'll be looking forward to receiving that.
Absolutely, Richard. And we've also still got our book available, which is the Paranormal Concept Extra book. It's available worldwide now, including Australia, all on Amazon. So you go to your local one, whatever country you're in, type in the Paranormal Concept Extra, and it will come up and buy the book. It's full of blogs and ideas and stuff like that, concepts that we've discussed on not only on the shows but everywhere else, and we've just come up with ideas. So that's all in the book. Something for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's not just paranormal, but it's history. There's just a plethora of information in there.
Love that word.
Yeah, I do. That's why I used it. So if you want to use it, buy your own. So that's it from me, I think. Richard, have you got anything else to add?
No, I think you've covered most of the bases there. Everything, yeah. So if you want to catch up on any of our shows, you can also find us on the website, or we're over on YouTube as well, Paranormal Concept.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget to check us out on the socials. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. The Paranormal Concept show is the one you need to be searching for. On that note, Say good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.